The situation in the 108th Airborne Assault Regiment of the Russian Occupation Army, which is located in the temporarily occupied part of the Zaporizhzhia region, has become extremely tense due to senseless orders from the command. This was reported on the Telegram channel by the Ukrainian partisan movement Atesh. According to Atesh, the command of the Russian occupation forces gave the 108th Airborne Assault Regiment the order to seize the village of Pavlovka in the Zaporizhzhia region at any cost. So the Russian occupiers are attacking almost around the clock, regardless of the very large losses. It has reached the point that rear echelon personnel and unwanted officers are being transferred to the assault units. The Russian occupiers are attacking without support from neighboring units, without artillery support or effective electronic warfare. Because of all this, a critical situation has developed in the 108th Airborne Assault Regiment of the Russian Occupation Army. The situation there is tense to the limit. Soldiers of this regiment are increasingly leaving their combat positions without permission. There have been cases of suicide. Earlier, it became known that in the 247th Airborne Assault Regiment of the Russian Occupation Army in Zaporizhzhia, there is a large number of cases of desertion. According to Atesh, some forcibly mobilized Ukrainians from the temporarily occupied Crimea, as well as from the temporarily occupied areas of the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions, serve in the 247th Airborne Assault Regiment of the Occupation Army of the Russian Federation. They do not want to fight against their country, against Ukraine. That is why they are fleeing the occupation Russian army. The Atesh movement also reported that servicemen of the Russian Occupation Army often end up on the lists of deserters because their documents disappear after being sent to the hospital. In this case, the officers-occupiers usually immediately talk about unauthorized abandonment of the unit. Doctors of the Russian Occupation Army do not specify where the serviceman is. Atesh called on Ukrainians who were forcibly taken into the Russian Occupation Army to evade service and go over to the side of the Ukrainian partisans. It should be noted that not only desertion, but also various falsifications of other violations are thriving in the Russian Occupation Army. Thus, recently, the Russian Defense Ministry announced the alleged capture of the city of Chasov Yar in the Donetsk region. The Ukrainian Armed Forces immediately denied this statement by the enemy. According to Ukrainian military observer Denis Popovich, the occupiers often declare the alleged capture of this or that settlement in Ukraine, although this is not actually the case. They do this for the sake of awards.
At least 35 cars of a Union Pacific freight train derailed Tuesday near a small Texas town, officials said. According to Associated Press, no injuries were reported and no evacuations have been ordered following the afternoon derailment, Union Pacific spokeswoman Robin Tisver said. News footage showed multiple train cars piled on top of one another on the railroad track located in a rural area. A grass fire and smoke could be seen beside the derailment site. The Emergency Services District said the derailment was being treated as a hazardous material situation. But it was not immediately known what the derailed train cars were carrying. The derailment occurred around 2 p.m. just east of the town of Gordon, Tisver said. Gordon is located about 65 miles southwest of Fort Worth. None of the railroad cars were leaking their contents, according to a post on social media by the Palo Pinto County Emergency Services District 1. Crews are on scene, mitigating the damage and hazards. Fire officials are proceeding with caution at the scene, the Emergency Services District said in a statement. The Palo Pinto Fire Department was working to contain a grass fire, Tisver said. Union Pacific crews are en route, Tisver added. A small plane landing on Monday at a Montana airport crashed into parked aircraft, triggering a large fire but causing no serious injuries, authorities said. According to Associated Press, the single-engine plane carrying 4 people was attempting to land at about 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time at the Kalispell City Airport, according to Kalispell Police Chief Jordan Venezio and the Federal Aviation Administration. A preliminary investigation showed the pilot lost control, crashing onto the runway before the plane struck several parked aircraft, igniting fires on multiple planes, Kalispell police said. The fire spread to a grassy area before it was extinguished, Venezio said. The small, city-owned airport is just south of Kalispell, a city of about 30,000 people in northwest Montana. Witnesses said a plane crash-landed at the end of the runway and careened into another aircraft, Kalispell Fire Chief Jay Hagan said. The passengers were able to get out on their own after it came to a stop, Hagan said. 2 were slightly hurt and treated at the airport, he said. Ron Danielson manages a nearby inn and said he heard and saw the crash before plumes of dark smoke filled the area. It sounded like if you were to stick your head in a bass drum and somebody smacked it as hard as they could, he said. The flight originated in Pullman, Washington, according to the National Transportation Safety Board. The plane was identified by the FAA as a Cicada TBM 700 turboprop. It was built in 2011 and owned by Meter Sky LLC of Pullman, FAA records show. Company representatives did not immediately respond to a telephone message seeking comment. Aviation safety consultant Jeff Gazzetti, who used to investigate crashes for both the FAA and NTSB, said incidents where planes crash into parked aircrafts happen a few times a year in general aviation.
Like bounced, it hit the ground and bounced up.